Has that everyone got their water, the coffee, any extra donuts left? Well, thank you for coming back to watching part 2 of the Holy Land Tour. As you know, we weren't able to get through everything in the time from a couple weeks back. But you know, when you have 2 weeks worth of pictures, I guess that happens. So the last thing we we stopped with was we were going through the large model of Jerusalem as it would have appeared just before its destruction by the Romans. And so I just wanted to point out a few things again that you can see from this model. So now up here we have, of course, the Temple Mount, and you can see the city in the distance. This was the largest that it was. And you can see, and this is what was called the Upper City. You know, a lot of nice, more Roman-style buildings. But down here you can see this is the Lower City. This is where the common people would have lived. You know, a lot more tight and constricted, much more dense as well. Now, I kind of want you to remember this because if you go to Jerusalem today, you'll see the old city, which is still walled off. But the size you see today is not what you see here. The city is actually smaller. The walls are actually smaller than what you see here. In fact, all of this area here is not within the walls today. Basically, when the last time the walls were rebuilt, I think it was maybe from the Turks, they decided not to continue that wall. They just tore that part down. But you'll see more of that as we go on. Now this is a view of the temple itself. So like I said, if you remember from last time, you know, a lot of big open spaces where people could walk around and converse and pray. Now anyone could have come into this area, this open areas. They would call that the court of Gentiles. Anyone could be here. But once you get into this door here, this was Jews only. And then there was a section for men, a section for women, and then a section for the priests. And then, of course, only the high priest could actually enter into the main sanctuary itself, the Holy of Holies. And even he only did that once a year. Now, you will notice, you know, there's different gates into the city. You'll notice down here this gate. This is the eastern gate. Now, this gate is rather important. It is through this gate where on Palm Sunday, Jesus entered the city. He would have entered through this gate. And there would have been certain symbolism through that, because it was believed that the Messiah, the Savior, would ride on a donkey entering through this gate. And indeed, this is the gate that Jesus would have entered. Now, in the city today, you know, there's different gates. There's about 8 different gates you can enter into the old city. The eastern gate is blocked off. It's the only gate that is not open anymore. That one's blocked off. One, because it enters directly into the Temple Mount itself. And two, and another reason is, I guess part of the symbolism, they didn't want anyone else just entering through that gate again. And so as we go through more modern pictures, you'll see that gate blocked off. So this is an area, we are up on the Mount of Olives. This is a place where Jesus and his disciples would often go to pray. It's just east of the old city. There's a big valley right if you leave the east gate, and then up on the hill is the Mount of Olives. This is where Gethsemane is in this valley below, and right above it is the Mount of Olives. Well, this section here marks off the place of the ascension of Jesus. Now, you may remember, in most places, there's like a big church where marking this, where certain events from Jesus' life happened. You won't find that here. In this particular location, you have a little monument, and this area is controlled by basically the Palestinians or the Muslims, so no church is actually built here. And so only on the Feast of the Ascension itself are the various Christian churches able to actually come here and have Mass or have their liturgies. Otherwise, it's just this monument. But you can go inside, and it's very simple inside, and it is believed that this is the spot where Jesus was last standing when he ascended into heaven. Now, do we know that it was this exact very spot? No, but this is the spot they believe. We know it was on the Mount of Olives, so we know it was up here, and so this is the spot they built this monument. And so what you do when you go there, you can actually place your hand there on the spot itself as an act of veneration. And this is also up on the Mount of Olives. Now we're in a location where you'll notice there's a certain prayer. One's in Aramaic and the one's in Hebrew. Anyone want to guess what prayer is written here? Yes?
Probably the Lord's Prayer.
Correct. It is the Lord's Prayer. It was believed to be around this area where Jesus would have first taught the Lord's Prayer to his followers. And so at this site, what you'll see is there's actually a church here, and the entire church is basically the Lord's Prayer written in every single language. Well, at least it seemed like it was every single language. There was a lot there. And so these ones are important here, the Aramaic, because this is how Jesus most likely would have spoken it for the first time. And so these are like some of the little caves in there where, I mean, it gets hot there. I mean, we were there in late May, and it was already kind of getting pretty hot. So if you needed some shade, you definitely want to go into one of these caves. Now, we're on the Mount of Olives. Now we're looking back into Jerusalem itself. You can see the Dome of the Rock there. This little piece here, that's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre with the gray domes on it. So a lot going on there. Now this is the area I was talking about. You can see the present day wall snaking along the city here. Now that areas of the lower city I showed you, that would have all been in this area here and beyond. So that area is not within the old city anymore. Now you can see there's actually some archaeological excavations going on here and other stuff around this area. But this is the extent of the city walls. Actually, a story for you. One day, me and a couple of the guys I was with, we decided to see how long it would take to walk around the entire city. And there was a priest in there in Jerusalem who said, yeah, I was able to walk around it in just over 30 minutes, around the entire city, the old walled city. So I thought, hey, we could do that. I think we can do that. Well, somewhere along the way, we made a wrong turn or something. And, well, it took us much longer than that once we actually found our way back. Because you'll have roads here that kind of snake around and all that, and then a few that go inside. But had we not made that wrong turn, yes, I think we could have done it in 30 minutes. We didn't try it a second time, though. And also, you can actually walk on top of the wall. God, obviously the walls were built for defense purposes, and so there's actually a way you can get up. I think it was only about $5. You could get up and actually walk along most of the length of the walls, which was pretty neat, actually. A bit of a long walk, but I thought it was worth it. But it gave you a sense of just like how compact this city is. And, and also shows you how, because you're just rolling, as you're walking along, you can see basically just houses and things of that sort. And just, for a lot of people, this isn't just simply a holy site, this is home. We often think of these sites as, all these amazing faraway places for pilgrimages and prayer, but for a lot of other people, it's just their home. It's their backyard, so to speak. And now this is the eastern gate that I was talking about. As you can see, it's walled up, and it leads right into the Temple Mount area. So no one goes through that gate anymore. This little branch here this is known as Christ's thorn. When you hear about the crown of thorns being woven, it would have been this. This is what they would have used. So they would have cut off the branches and then woven it together. So you can see the size of these thorns. These were not little, thin, prickly things. These were pretty large. And so if you were attempting to place that on someone's head, it's going to hurt. And so obviously that's where it got the name Christ thorn, because they would have used this type of branch. Now this is at a small little chapel up on the Mount of Olives. And this looks down towards Jerusalem. And I forget exactly what the name of this church is, but it's believed that this is when Jesus was approaching Jerusalem. This is when he was looking over the city. You can see the whole city from this spot. He's looking over the city and he weeps over the city. He weeps for Jerusalem because he knows that there are many there who are not going to believe his word. That for many, the ones he has come to save, come to preach to, will not listen to him. And so this is from that spot looking over the city. And of course, in Jesus' day, instead of the Dome of the Rock, he would have seen the temple. This is also kind of looking over, this is looking towards more of the north part of the city. You see this here. This is a Russian Orthodox church, which is, I believe, dedicated to Mary Magdalene, if memory serves. And it's in what they call onion domes. Just looking at it, I'm sure you can see why. Which is a very common architectural feature there. We were able to get in this church, but as a rule, I believe we weren't allowed to take pictures of it, because I don't have any. But it's actually a very nice place. You'll just have to take my word for it. Now what you're looking at here is, this is again on the Mount of Olives. There's the valley here I was talking about. Jerusalem would be off in this corner. What you're seeing here is a cemetery. Now, unlike the cemeteries we see that we're used to, the graves would just be one right next to the other, very compact. Our cemeteries here are almost kind of like parks. A lot of green space, trees, decent amount of space in between each grave. But here, they're very compact. And you can see this is definitely an older section here, which is a lot more deteriorated, as opposed to over here, which is a little more kept up. And the reason is this is built here on purpose. One, according to Jewish law, all cemeteries had to be outside of the city. You could not have one within the city, most likely for cleanliness purposes, for purity reasons. But if I remember correctly, they purposely, when you were buried, you were purposely facing east, in which when you laid down, your feet were facing east, because in part of some Jewish circles would say that when you would rise, they wanted to be risen facing Jerusalem. And so that's why the cemetery is on this side, facing towards the city. We are now down at Gethsemane in the garden. And there's actually, it's not as big as you'd think. At some point, the Romans kind of bulldozed the area, if you will. And so, the thing about olive trees is they seem to really keep living, no matter what you do. So long as the roots in the ground, they'll keep growing. So you can see how thick these trees are that have grown. These trees are several thousand years old. This one's considered to be the oldest in the area. I think they said this tree here is about 4,000 years old, they say. So you look at this tree, you look back at these, there's a very good chance that these same trees, well, we know, these same trees, some of these same trees would have been there during the time of Jesus. It's very possible they walked right past them, these very trees. There's not many of these old ones left. In fact, as you can see, this one's fenced in. This one's considered the oldest. But yeah, it just keeps growing. So it kind of gives you a little bit of that, something physical linked you back to the past there. And, you know, Jesus' disciples may have just walked past these very trees. This is here the Church of All Nations down in the Gethsemane area. I don't have any pictures of the inside because my camera wasn't focusing right. I just didn't get really any good pictures on the inside, so I never bothered to keep them. So it was kind of dark inside, but it's a very nice church. And then this is inside, this is a chapel at Gethsemane, which shows where Jesus would have been there in the garden in prayer on the night he was betrayed. So you can see some of the apostles are asleep right beneath the altar. And so yeah, this is the Gethsemane area looking out over the place. Now, this is looking south or east, I forget. You'll notice this wall here. This is more kind of just a look of just how things are today. That's a wall basically to separate Israel from the West Bank, from the Jewish-controlled areas to the Palestinian-controlled areas. And so that's a wall that was built to keep people from crossing over. I think from when I took this picture, it was still a relatively new wall, so the only way you can get through is through various checkpoints. And so it's just one of those modern realities on how things are in the Holy Land these days. You know, there's a lot of these divisions there and walls going up. Now I will say, there was never a time where I did not feel safe. I mean, I always felt secure when I was there. Did I say that right? I always felt safe there. There was never a time where I felt in danger or anything of that sort. But it is one of those realities that there are not all the relationships there are good between the people who call this land their home. Now this is a nice church. This is the church of Peter Gallicantu. Now Gallicantu is Latin. It means where the rooster crows. So I think you can maybe, in fact you can see a little rooster on top. And I think you can kind of guess what happened in this place, where we are. This is, of course, this is the area, this is where Peter would have denied Jesus 3 times. Where he would have heard the cock crow and realized his betrayal, his denial of him. This is also the location of the house of Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year. When Jesus was originally arrested, we were at Gethsemane before, where he was arrested. This is kind of on the opposite side of the city. This is also outside the city walls. That's the walls today. And so Jesus would have been brought here to the house of Caiaphas, where his initial interrogation would have occurred. And so inside there's various bits of artwork in there which show Jesus before the Sanhedrin under trial. It's not the screen, it's my camera, is why it's blurry. Now there's different levels that you can go down, because in the house of Caiaphas there's actually a dungeon, a place for prisoners here in this location. And we know Jesus would have been held there overnight, and so he would have been most likely placed in one of these cells, if you will. And so of course, there's a church there, built right on top of the site. And here's artwork that shows Jesus and Peter and, of course, the rooster. This is in just one of the dungeons there. There's actually, I don't think I have a picture of it. There's actually a little place where there's a hole drilled into the wall, and that would have been used to rope to tie a person there in place. And so this is where it's believed that Jesus would have been held. There was just been a hole there in the opening, and they would have tied a person up and lowered them down. And thus, there was no way to get out unless they put the rope back down and brought you back up. And so it's believed Jesus would have spent the night here before Friday morning, when they would have taken him to Pilate. Now, of course, they've actually dug through so you can actually get down there via staircase nowadays. But before that would not have been there. And of course, there would have been no light, so it would have been pretty much pitch black under normal circumstances. And there's a statue outside. It shows Peter next to a charcoal fire, and then in Latin it says, "I don't know him," showing the place where he would have denied Jesus. Now this is interesting here. This is a staircase which would have led more into the city, more into the interior of the city. These are the original steps from Jesus' day. And in fact, it's most likely that when they were leading Jesus to and from the house of Caiaphas, he would have had to walk these very steps. And so these are the original steps as Jesus would have known them. Now this is the area known as the cenacle. This is the upper room where the Last Supper would have occurred. This is the room where the apostles and Mary would have been on Pentecost when the Holy Spirit descended down. Now, obviously, it wasn't exactly this room. They did not have Gothic architecture for their ceilings. I can assure you of that. But it is this location. And so a lot of people will come here for services and things of that sort. Oh, there's not an actual chapel here. You know, it's kind of, I forget exactly how, if they did have Mass there. Probably on the Feast of the Pentecost itself, they would do things there. And now we are, I believe, near at the Church of the Dormition. Now, as you know, according to our belief, Mary was assumed body and soul into heaven. And whether or not, and again, the church doesn't officially say one way or the other whether she actually died or not. If you remember our talk about Mary, we kind of discussed that a little bit. Or that maybe she just fell asleep. That we don't know for sure. And there's actually two competing spots. One for the Catholics, one for the Orthodox that say, oh, it happened in this place. So there's actually two different churches in two different locations saying, this is the place of the Dormition, this is where Mary would have rested, or where Mary was assumed into heaven. I don't have pictures of the one from where the Orthodox Church is, but I do have ones where the Catholic Church is, and so that's the one I'm going to show you. And so this is where it was believed to be Mary's resting spot before she was assumed into heaven. It's a very nice church, very big church too. So this is just some of the artwork and mosaics that you would see in here, usually with the apostles surrounding Mary. And if memory serves, yep, there's just a kind of few more places where there's various chapels. And this is from the area of the main chapel. And that is the last of my pictures. Now this was, we were here on this last day. The last day we were there was basically just a traveling day. At this point, our last day, we were basically allowed to go wherever we wanted in the city. So I know a bunch of us went to the Holy Sepulchre again early in the morning for actual private prayers and devotions, you know, get away from the crowds. I think that was also the day I walked the city wall, which was pretty fun. Afterwards, then we made our way back. Went back to Tel Aviv, got on the plane, and made our 12-hour trip back. And so that is the Holy Land based on my personal experiences of going through everything. And so, did you have any questions on some of the locations we saw today or a couple weeks ago, or maybe some of the places that maybe I did not get a picture of, or maybe I did not explain well? Or maybe a place you heard about in Scripture that maybe I did not cover. Any questions of any sort on that? Yes?
I'm just curious as to what is the locations or the places that you visited that were the most inspiring, or where you might have felt the most close to Christ.
All right. So you asked, what places did I feel was the most inspiring or the most closest to Christ? That would definitely have to be Holy Sepulchre, Church of the Holy Sepulchre, because that's a place where Christ was crucified, where he died, and where he was buried, where he rose. And And it's all, like I said, it's all under that one church. It's a big church, but even again, the area, it's all closer than you would think. But it's all pretty much right there. And so, that was definitely, I think I went to that church 4 times during the course of my stay there in Jerusalem. Because there was just so much to see, so much to contemplate there. And so, and like I said before, probably the best time is when me and a couple of others, we went there early in the morning where it was very quiet, very calm and peaceful. And you had a lot of great opportunity to meditate and contemplate and pray at the various sites. So if you ever go to the Holy Land, I would recommend visiting that church in the early morning if you can. Again, I think it opens up at 5:30. But because by 10 o'clock, all the crowds and the rest of the tourists are there. And sometimes you feel, it can be easy to fall into the trap of being a tourist. Because you want to take the pictures, you want to remember all this, you really want to ask questions and see all the sites. But you're also there as a pilgrim too, to visit these sites, to contemplate the life of Christ in the land of which he walked and in which he spoke. So sometimes it can be a little hard to balance that, to remember, I'm not just here as a tourist, just visiting the place. I'm here to grow closer, to get a deeper appreciation for the life of Christ and what that means for me as a Christian. Yes?
2 questions. You mentioned the steps that Jesus would have taken to Caiaphas' house. What other places are essentially original? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then is Golgotha still there? You know what I mean? Or is it covered over, built over, or anything like that?
Mm-hmm. So basically, what you were asking was, how much of the stuff there is actually original? And like I said, I just showed those steps. I showed the steps. Yeah, Jesus probably would have walked on these very steps. How much of it there is actually original? Jerusalem is a very old city. 2,000 years have passed since Jesus lived there, since he walked there and preached there. So in one sense, there's not really many things that I would call original left. At the same time, Jerusalem itself was sacked and destroyed by the Romans not even 40 years after Jesus. So even the temple itself is gone. It wasn't even 40 years after Jesus where the whole temple was destroyed, except for the large retaining wall, which you can still see today, of course. So, let's see. Let's see what I can find. If I can show you some original images. As for Golgotha, Mount Calvary, yes, it is there. The Holy Sepulchre is built on top of it, of course. But yes, the hill itself is still there. I believe I took a picture somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Which actually shows. Okay, let me see where we are. I thought I took a picture of it. Maybe it's later on. Well, I think I'm getting close. Okay, I found it. Found what I'm looking for. No. Don't scroll. Lost it. Too many pictures. Okay, here we go. Here's the picture I was looking for. So if you see here, this is actually part of Mount Calvary itself. The church was built right on top of it, of course. And so they actually glassed that part off because people kept chipping away at it. And so that's why there's that glass container there. It's to stop people from taking a piece of the mountain, of the hillside itself, of the rock. And then, of course, at the site of the crucifixion itself, right under the altar there, you can kneel down, well, you're forced to kneel down. And there's an opening there where you can place your hand and feel and touch the top of Mount Calvary itself. Now, it's called Mount Calvary. It was really more of just kind of like a large rock mound, if you will. But yeah, that place you can actually touch. So yeah, a lot of things are there. It's just built on top of it over the years. People kept building and building and building on top of everything. So yeah, there's a few of those. So in terms of actual original locations, a little hard to come by. At Capernaum, there's the remains of Peter's house that you can see. Of course, there's a church built on top of it. If you remember the pictures, you can see the remains of the house itself, and then one church, and then another church, and then another church that were just built over the years. So it's a little hard again to find actual locations that Jesus would have seen and touched himself. Anyone else? Well, with that said, this concludes Deacon and Donuts for, well, I guess not only the year, but I guess for good, because this is our last one. Now, there were a couple of other things I would have liked to talk about, but as you remember, winter was pretty harsh this year. We lost 2 or 3 days as a result, so I couldn't get to everything. But I hope that, you were able to learn something, get a greater appreciation or knowledge of just the very basic things of our faith, the foundations of our faith, the expressions of our faith, and what that means for us as Catholics, and how we can use that to deepen our relationship with God, to better our relationship with one another. And so with that, I thank all of you who have come to this, who have learned from this. I enjoy doing this. I always enjoy the opportunity to teach and present the faith whenever we can. And so, again, I just thank you for coming and enjoying these Sunday mornings. Thank you.